In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at AgentKit. Now, AgentKit is a newly released tooling for building agents from OpenAI. And to actually make sense of this, we're going to be building an agent. First and foremost, let's understand how AgentKit actually works. Now, AgentKit basically is building on top of existing OpenAI Agent SDK and Responses API to provide a set of tools that allow you to build agents very, very quickly. So from what they say basically going from simple goals to complex ended workflows. So kind of thinking through your agent from the perspective of a workflow, but more importantly, how you serve that agent back inside a UI interface. All right, so they break it out into three phases. There's sort of the building aspect of it, which is what the agent builder is all about. And we're going to show you exactly what that looks like. There's the deploy aspect. So basically there's a new tooling called ChatKit, which allows you to have like this conversational interface which provides both conversational text as well as embedded UIs. And then there's sort of the optimize, which is for your evaluation and observability for your agent. So basically the life cycle of your agent managed within this sort of platform called AgentKit. All right, for the agent we're building today is a video research agent. So this agent is going to allow me to research different videos. I typically like to do this, like, kind of research different angles, research different topics that are out there, which allows me to kind of understand how best to make content that is going to make sense for the audience. So what are people thinking about? What videos are doing well and performing great? All these types of things. So I like to do that type of research sometimes as I create videos. So I'm building myself an agent that allows me to do that. All right, so let's take a look at the agent in action first, and then we'll show you exactly how it works. So I can say something like, help me research all the videos that are talking about MCP server gateways. So this could be an example of a video I'm trying to do. Now, what you see right away is the fact that there's some kind of guardrails, and I'll walk you through exactly how to configure this. And it's kind of determining what type of query that I'm running. So in this case is video research. And then based on that, it's calling this tool, which is an MCP server that I have for YouTube. And it's going to go ahead and use the information that comes back from that MCP server to render some sort of UI component, which basically is a widget showing different videos and information about those videos. So you can see the reasoning in here is just talking about how it wants to go compile different information. It's preparing sort of the final output. And once it does that, you can see like the final output is, sort of the JSON itself, but also underneath that JSON, we're going to see the actual UI components as well. All right. So below here, we could see all the videos, talking about MCP server gateways, and you can see all of them right here rendered as UI components. So this is essentially how our agent is going to work. Now, our agent is going to be doing way more things in the future. So I'm going to continue to work on this agent to do more interesting things. And by the way, I do see my video out here, which is amazing. But let's talk about how to build something like this. Now, the very first piece is obviously the starting point. So this, for every agent you create, you can always have like this starting point. Usually your starting point is going to be where you sort of see your input variable. So this input as text is kind of normal because all conversations are starting with some kind of text. Now, the next piece to work on or look at is guardrails. Now, I think if you're building any production grade agent, you want to think about guardrails very, very importantly. So you want to stop any issues right off the bat. So you're protecting sort of the downstream aspects of your agent. So whether it is, I don't want people to provide personal identifiable information in chat. Maybe you want to kind of do some moderation. Maybe you want to prevent against hallucination and so on and so forth. So all of these things you can very, very, very quickly catch immediately. So in my case, I have personal identifiable information. I don't want people entering their credit card numbers. I don't want people entering their phone numbers. I don't want people entering their bank account. This is very important as you build production grade applications or agents. You don't want these types of information stored in your systems, or you don't want people providing this kind of information. So right off the bat, you can stop those things from happening. So that's sort of the very first step here. Now, to test out whether guardrails are working or not, now one of the things I can do very, very quickly is go back to my preview. And let's say I said my phone number is, and I'm going to just put a random number, 656-909-2914. Let's say this is what it is, or 2981, whatever. Okay, so now you can see right away, guardrails failed. So this stops my agent from proceeding, right? Just because immediately I have put in something that it's failing. Now, it tries to detect what this could look like. Right now, it's saying that it's date time, which is not particularly accurate. Or maybe that's because of the way I've put the phone number. So let's try putting the phone numbers differently. So let's say my phone number is 615-231-1245. Let's say if I try this. This is more phone number format. Okay, so now it's kind of detected as a phone number and it's stopping it from happening. Now, the same thing if I entered something like my email address is something@something.com. Once again, you're going to see immediately it should fail because this is detected as an email address. This is so powerful when you are working in the enterprise. You don't want this type of conversations to continue. You want to end it immediately and stop things from happening. Now, you can choose what to do when something fails. So for instance, you might want to scrub data from your logs. If it contains this, you might want to mask them. There's so many different approaches that you could take when something fails. So this kind of gives you that possibility. I can't stress enough how important it is to have guardrails in any agent that you're building. All right, so let's continue. Now, once my guardrails are passed, the next thing I want to do is some of this classification step. Now, the classification step is where I'm taking an agent and trying to understand what this particular question is all about. So this determine query type allows me to say, if this question is about video research, then we want to continue. If it's not about video research, I don't want to kind of continue answering the question. I don't want to waste tokens, or I don't want to kind of waste the person's time. I want to just stop that message right off the bat. So the very first thing I want to do is inside our agent, we dropped an agent in here. We give the agent sort of the instruction, understand whether this tool is about video research or other type of research, right? And then we say, here is the question, right? Here's the question. And the question is whatever has been put in as an input. Now to do that, you basically add context as input, which is like this, input as text. Cool. So we have our input in there as a question. And we're saying that we want to classify whether this is about video research or about something else. So in the output format, what you want to do is to select JSON, right? So we selected JSON here. And what we have here is like we've decided to kind of create this sort of JSON object that says query type. Now, query type is a name. And we've said it can either be a video research or other, because we're using an enum. Enum just basically means like different options, right? But you want your options to always be sort of specific. You don't want it to sort of be random options. If I use string for this, it's going to use random options, which makes it much more difficult to use down the line. But here, we're using specific options, video research or other. If it's video research, here's what we want to do. If it's other, here's what we want to do. And then we have a description here. So what's happening behind the scenes? Well, the LLM will take your question and decide whether this is a video research or not, right? So that's what this is happening. That's how this is working. Now, one of the cool things about building with Agent Builder is that you have these sort of generate tool that is that is here. So for me, all I did was actually to generate this schema. So you can decide what the schema looks like. You hit the generate button and you tell it what you want it to do, and it will be able to generate your schema pretty quickly. So that's one way you can speed up the way you're building. Now, if you want to see this in terms of code, this is what the object, the structured output looks like. So it's like an object that includes an enum, and the enum has like a list, and you can also make modifications to this if you want as well, right? So if you have like an object already, you can just throw it in here and that should be ready to go as well. All right, so now that we have our query type classified, we know like, okay, whenever a question comes in, we know what the query type is. So we can then use the if else statement to decide what to do when it's a video research versus when it's not. When it's a video research, we want to pass it to our agent. When it's not, we want to sort of end the conversation. So here in our if else, I'm just going to show you our if else right here. You could see very, very quickly that we say we're passing in this sort of expression. Now, what I would say is this takes a little bit of learning. So I think spend some time going through the documentation, which kind of explains to you exactly how to use these expressions. And also, if you can take some time, you can go into the actual common expression language to learn more about how these expressions work. So you can see like the things that you can access, different variables, the variables within the flow that you want to use. And you can actually build in interesting logic into these expressions as well. So it's not just sort of comparison, like, you know, equals to or less than or not equal to. You could also kind of add things like, you know, multiplying, doing some arithmetic in there, doing some conditionals and stuff like that. So there's so many things you could do within this expression language. And I would say go and check out cell.dev, which has all the sort of information about expression language to understand how to write this expression language. So it took me a little bit of time to kind of get on track with it. But once you kind of go through all of this, you'd see exactly how to work with this, or at least you can pass this information to your vibe coding tool so they can give you a good sense of what's going on. But this is so important for anything that you're doing that requires sort of these types of expressions. All right. So in our case, for our expression here, all right, so we can see on our if else, we have this expression. So this expression says input. So you always want to sort of have an input as a preface, dot output parsed. So output parsed means that we're taking this sort of output from here. So output parsed in this case would be query type. So that's what we're passing in. So now I struggled with this a little bit when I was trying to, you know, kind of doing this, because I felt maybe the right thing should be output parsed dot, you know, query classifier dot query type. But apparently all they need you to do is just pass in the actual property name, which is query type here. So that's what we have inside our if else statement. So input dot output underscore passed dot query type equals to video research. So this means that when we make our query, it's going to kind of determine what the query is about. So let's test it out so you can see exactly what this looks like. So let's say we were doing some kind of research and we said, research all the journals written about MCP servers. Now, this is expected to fail, right? Because this here says, this is passed, but this is failing. Now, the reason it's failing is because this query is not related to video research. So it's already understanding that and it is failing that. So it's saying the query type is order and has nothing to do with video research. And you can see even in the sort of pathway that it sort of ends because it's not, you know, related. So that's sort of the way you could do it. But if I made a request like show me all the videos related to MCP servers. Now, this time around, you're going to see that our classifier is going to do, you know, set it to video research, and then it's going to continue sort of running through. All right. Now, the final piece is our final agent that is going to actually answer the question. Now, our agent has a name. So this is just basically the instruction we're setting. All right. So you choose your model. You can choose any of the models that are available, and then you choose the reasoning effort. I'm going to keep my reasoning effort to low, or you can also do it to medium. Minimal prevents you from using things like MCP server. So keep that in mind. I think some models also prevent you from using certain tooling or certain capabilities. So keep that in mind. I think GPT-5 is probably the best one to use for a lot of the different things you want to do because it supports all the different things that we want. Now, under tools, you can add different types of tools. You can add like an MCP server, which is what we currently have. You could add a file search, web search, code interpreter. You can do a custom function as well. So for this particular use case, we're doing an MCP server, and our MCP server does have a set of tools. Now, each of these tools you can attach a specific widget to if you want. And we'll talk a little bit about widgets right now, but you could attach a widget to it. So here you can see all the different tools I have. My tooling is based on YouTube's API. So that's what this particular MCP server is based on. So it's basically calling functions that interact with the YouTube API. So here we have like searching the YouTube, getting video comments, channel stats, and these types of things. All right. So the other piece to look at, which is so important, is what output do I want my agent to provide? And you have a few options here. You have providing simple text, you have providing JSON, and you have providing a widget. Now, you'll be probably familiar with text and JSON, but not widget. And widget is really where we start to use UI components, as you saw earlier on with the list of videos with a thumbnail and information about it showing up in those UI components. And you're seeing this more and more inside ChatGPT itself, but also OpenAI encouraging you to use this within your chat experiences to have this combination of conversational text plus UI components. So here, this is my UI component. Now, to create this UI component, OpenAI has provided a widget builder. So which is what this is. So you could go to the widget builder. I'm going to drop the link in the description for the widget builder. The widget builder basically allows you to build widgets that look like this. So these are some of the examples that they have existing. It's built on these components, right? So there are a bunch of components in here that you could use to build these things out. So depending on what type of component you're trying to build, whether it's an input component or just a display component, you have so many different things that you could use. This actually reminds me so much of Slack's block kit as well, which allows you to build Slack UI components as well. So I think that they're taking the same approach. You also have access to icons. And the cool thing about the agent builder as well is that you could use the chat to actually build something like this, or you could build from scratch. So depending on what you're looking for, you can either just sort of describe what you're looking for. So for video lists, for my video list, I actually just did that. I just described, here's what I'm looking at. Here's the data that is associated with it. And it generated this, for me. And this is what we're using, right? So this is sort of a list view. It's sort of the first step. That's the main component. And inside that component, we're now rendering all the information that we're returning. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're using these widgets is that whatever data that your tool is returning needs to be really mapping directly to this particular component. So as an example, you could see in the list view item here, we have the main item, and inside that item, we have an image. Now this image is mapping to thumbnail, which is the image URL that we get from my tool. So when you call the search tool, one of the things that it returns is the image URL as thumbnail. It returns duration, it returns views, it returns URL. So once you do work with the widget, you can download the widget. If I do widget, I can just click on widget. I can upload an existing widget. So in this case, I'm going to use this one. This is the latest one I'm using currently. And then you can see your widget right here. You can also see the code associated with your widget too, right here as well. If you want to edit it, you can hit the edit. It takes you back into your widget builder. You can make certain edits to it, download and re-upload again. So that's how widgets work. And once you're done with all of this, you can always preview like we've been doing. And you also have the ability to publish. Once you publish this, this now becomes available for use. But this is the part where it starts to get interesting. So how do we actually use this? How do we actually start to use this particular application? All right. Now, the way to use this is using the ChatKit that we've been talking about. For me, I would say the fastest way to use ChatKit is to use this OpenAI ChatKit starter app. this is the fastest way to actually use it. So I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to drop a link in the description as well. Okay. All right. So first step, we want to go ahead and clone the repo. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And this is going to clone the repo. So we have this repo in here. And what I want to do is to CD into this. So I'm just going to grab this over here and CD into it. And now we have this up and running. Now, the next thing I want to do is to go ahead and do an npm install to install all the packages associated with this. Let's open the README here so we can see all the stuff that we're doing. Now, inside the application, we have this .env example, which kind of shows you the different keys that we need. We need an OpenAI key, and we also need a ChatKit workflow ID. Now, the ChatKit workflow ID is what we get when we go to the get code aspect of our agent, which is this ID that you see right here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and populate that. But to do that, we want to actually create a new file called env.local. Just basically copies everything we have in the .env example into our env.local. And then you can just basically paste this here. And now we can just simply run the app. So I'm just going to use the npm run dev right here. So our application is going to be running on port 3001. So let's open it up. Okay. So there we see it. That is our agent right there. This is our ChatKit agent. So now we can ask questions like list out the top 5 videos discussing MCP server gateways. So now what we expect is going to be happening is that it's going to be interacting with our agent directly. You can see it's starting to do all the stuff that we've actually built into our agent. Now it's asking for approval to use our MCP tool here, which we're going to approve. And it's going to go ahead and process that information and return a response. All right, so there we go. Our agent has come back with a response here that's showing us top 5 videos with, kind of the views and stuff like that. And we can see that widget is showing up here as well. So this is like the easiest and the fastest way to kind of get your agent up and running. All right, so finally, let's talk about evaluation. Evaluation is something that is so important when you're building production-grade applications or agents. Now you can see all the traces. The key thing here when it comes to evaluation is that you want to create graders that use an LLM as a judge type of agent to grade each run to see if it's doing what you expect it to do. So it's the type of testing you want to do when you're building agents. So as an example, I can say, check to see if the agent is providing exactly what the user is asking for. So here it's filling this specific one, and let me see why it's filling it. So it's saying the user asked to find the top 3 videos about MCPs. User wants top 3. It lists 3 videos with titles, but the videos and thumbnails contain placeholders. So this is unlikely to be, this is fabricated. And this is true because this was initially when I was doing the runs, this is what it was returning, which is interesting. Let's check this one out and see what the response was. This didn't quite go through. I want to see one that actually has like all the stuff there. Okay, so let's try this one. This one returns multiple. So let's go ahead and run this. So this sort of helps us to evaluate. Now you can also evaluate much more than one single one at a particular point in time. You can evaluate every single run that has been done as well. All right. So this is a pass, and this makes sense. It's a pass because it's actually giving us exactly what we asked for. The asked for 3 videos discussing OpenAI, and the review shows that it returns 3 as well. You can have multiple graders to grade your agent along different criteria for accuracy, for tone of voice, for specific formatting, for specific sort of context capture. Like there's just different ways that you can grade your agents. And this is sort of so important in the agent building lifecycle. So far we've seen how to build the agent, how to use it in a web interface, and how to actually evaluate them, as well as observe what's going on in each agent run. So that's basically it for AgentKit. Really looking forward to seeing what you guys build. Until next time, do have a great one. Cheers.